Hi, my name is Louise Wentzel, student number 21446815. Welcome to my analysis of my JGL 110 storybook, which I've chosen to call Lucky Gets Lucky. The front page depicts the titular character, a Labrador named Lucky. I decided to tell my story from a dog's point of view because I wanted to approach the COVID-19 pandemic from a fresh new angle. All of the illustrations for this book were done by Louise Wentzel, a very talented grade 10 learner whose work I wanted to support. On page 1, I introduce the audience to the main character, Lucky, and give a bit of backstory to help flesh him out as a character. I also describe the relationship he has with his family and show that there is a lot of love and companionship in that relationship. The illustration on page 1 shows that Lucky is a happy, carefree dog, as he is happily chasing after a bright purple ball. After the setting and relationships have been well established on page 1, I introduce the concept of COVID-19 lockdown as the inciting incident on page 2. I refer to President Cyril Ramaphosa, but choose not to refer to him by name because Lucky, as the main character, would not know his name because he's a dog. The first mention of corona regulations, staying at home and washing hands regularly, are mentioned here too. On page 3, I tell the audience that the aforementioned regulations are there to keep them safe. I also acknowledge the fact that the first few days or even weeks of the lockdown weren't bad, as we all saw it as a bit of a holiday. Being from Lucky's point of view, I make sure to refer to the human experience while explaining it in a way I think a dog would experience it. I mention Zoom meetings, as that would be a phrase the audience has heard, and once again relate it to the dog-like experience of zooming around running. After describing Lucky's interaction with the father on page 3, I describe his interactions with the mother and children on page 4. I put in the plot point of having a small business, as the mother in this story does, because I'm certain many of the learners in the audience have practical experience of family members owning their own small businesses. This relatability is furthered in the fact that none of the human characters have been assigned names, only roles such as mother, father, or children. This is done intentionally so that the members of the audience can insert themselves more easily in the story, and in so doing, learn more from what it is trying to teach them. The illustration on page 4 visually depicts the domestic peace which most of us experienced in those first few weeks of lockdown. Not only that, it visually represents the happy relationship between Lucky and his family. The first sign of rising tension is mentioned on page 5 and expanded on slightly in terms of what is causing said tension, but this does not inspire any action yet. After this, I describe yet another important COVID-19 regulation, wearing masks. I do not just say that it is necessary, but I have the father explain the science, in a simple, grade R friendly way, why it is necessary. I acknowledge the irritation I'm sure we've all felt with wearing masks on page 6, but I'm also sure to have the mother reiterate that even though it might be uncomfortable, it is absolutely necessary. Having our main character verbally and visually assert that he thinks masks are good, it is reinforcing the idea that masks are necessary. On page 7, I make sure to mention a few good aspects of the lockdown, like having the time to walk your dog or being able to give them a lot of petting, so that lockdown isn't seen as an inherently bad thing in case we need to go back to it. The beautiful illustration just visually depicts how something simple like a walk can make a dog like Lucky happy. While I'm sure to remind the audience that lockdown isn't necessarily bad, I also acknowledge and validate that it can be severely detrimental to mental health on page 8. I describe things that the main characters miss, which I'm sure the audience can relate to, too. This is where the tension builds to the high point of the story, where the children feel so isolated due to the lockdown that they finally confide in Lucky. After the confiding that serves as a high point on page 8, the resolution comes on page 9. The resolution comes in the form of the parents validating the difficult experience the children are having, which, once again, I'm certain the audience can relate to. The parents remind the children and the audience that these changes are, however, necessary. On page 10, the children, and hopefully the audience who has inserted themselves into the roles of the children, admit that even though they miss certain things, their health and safety, as well as the health and safety of others, are currently more important. I lessen the blow of this realization by bringing the attention back to Lucky and how happy he is to have them all home. I use the same illustration as the one on the cover page to bind the story to a close. The last page, page 11, diverges from the narrative and breaks the fourth wall, so to speak, by addressing the audience directly. The goal here is to have the audience internalize the message that they should seek help should they need it, as well as reiterating the most important COVID-19 regulations that need to be adhered to. In light of this analysis, I'm of the opinion that this storybook is not only informed and entertaining, it is universal and applicable to anyone. I hope that you have found this analysis beneficial. Thank you for watching.